The Bmore Football Podcast is brought to you by Rice Law. Hello and welcome inside another edition. It is the Bmore Football Podcast. We are back. He is the longtime Baltimore Sun columnist, Mike Preston. I'm Jerry Coleman. You can follow us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and YouTube. It's all at one address. It's Bmore Sports Pod. Bmore Sports Pod. Go ahead and bookmark it. We still have at least 6 more episodes to go and some special guests ahead. And you can always watch us via BaltimoreSun.com. In this episode, Mike and I discuss the Ravens' unhappy ending in Pittsburgh. We do assess the blame and try to point the fingers because that's what we do. And also ask what's next for the Ravens franchise. In addition, we'll preview the playoffs. And Mike, well, a report card for the regular season. Now, the final game of the regular season. I'm sure we'll have a report card grading everyone based on their season. That's later on in the year. But we kick off, as always, with For the Birds. It's brought to you by Rice Law. Hey, Baltimore football fans, if you've been hurt in a car accident, don't go at it alone. The lawyers at Rice Law know how to fight for the compensation you deserve. Protect yourself, protect your family, and remember, best advice, call Rice. Learn more by going to ricelawmd.com. That's ricelawmd.com. Well, Mike, you were there and you witnessed a lot of crushing losses over the years. For me, that was a top 5 all-time loss in Ravens history. I mean, yeah, Billy Cundiff and Lee Evans and, Mark Andrews, even Elvis Gerback. That was right up there with those type of defeats for me.
Snap good. Hold it. The kick is no good. It is wide right. And the Steelers are the champions of the North.
Yeah, it was the most disappointing loss. I would say the most disappointing loss in Ravens history. They had a shot to get into the postseason, didn't get it done, and it was exciting fourth quarter. I mean, I've never seen a fourth quarter like that. It was very dizzying, going up and down. And what you got to remember is both teams were ranked number 29 in pass defense, and it showed in that fourth quarter. But it was exciting. It was fun to watch, but you kind of knew Tyler Loop, a rookie, and it would come down to this, was he's never been in that situation before where the game is on the line, so are the postseason aspirations, and he's kicking in Pittsburgh, which is a tough place to kick, and he has to make it, and he wasn't close. He was very far wide right, and their season ended, and again, it is they finished 8-9 at the beginning of the season, and I wrote it that this was the best team they had, and I still believe that overall it was the best team they've ever had as far as balance, but they just didn't get it done.
Well, there's a lot to get to, and we'll start with the aforementioned Tyler Loop. Listen, I've heard the narrative that they should have gotten a little closer for him. They could have run one more play before he kicked the field goal. What we saw was an epic choke job, okay? This kid was 28 of 28 within 50 yards all during the regular season. He had the distance. It was just wide right. The inaccuracy was what cost him. It wasn't the distance at all. And again, there's no other way to describe it but a choke.
Yeah, and he didn't have a good day. I mean, the directional kick in the fourth quarter, which led to another touchdown for them. It's not a good day for Tyler Loop. But I tell you what, and I've seen it in Ravens kickers before, they all stand up for the most part and stand up and say what they have to after the game. And Tyler Loop did exactly that. Stood up, he manned up and said, yeah, I blew this game. I needed to have the backs of my teammates. I didn't get it done, and they'll go from here. And that's what I wanted to hear. That's what I wanted to see was for a rookie to do that. And he did that, but again, he just didn't get it done. It wouldn't even have been a good extra point. It was wide right, so it was way off the game.
Yeah, I respect the accountability, Mike. I don't respect the trolls that go on there and make it personal and go after him and his family. But you've been in that stadium a lot of times, more than I have. It's a very difficult stadium to kick in. Even Chris Boswell can attest to that after that botched extra point attempt.
Well, if you watch the extra point attempt, I watched it again this morning before I headed down here. It looked like the wind just got a hold of that one too and just blew it right out of the picture. It happens. And until you get around and go to play in all of these stadiums, you really don't know how the wind will affect kicks. And it definitely got a hold of his kick. And I'm not saying it affected Luke. What I'm saying is he just missed it. And he talked about it after the game, how he kind of sliced it and foot got caught in the ground and so forth. That happens. Will it happen again? Probably not, but it happened in this game. And Jerry, it was a fitting end for this season. That's the way it went down.
Oh, absolutely. And spare me the rhetoric that, you're putting a rookie kicker in this type of position late in the season with the season on the line. That's why you brought him in. That's why you actually drafted a kicker for the first time in Ravens history.
Yeah. I mean, and it was 44 yards. It wasn't like it was 55 yards or over 50. It was 40-some yards. It was just a bad kick, and he missed, and he got it wrong. That's it.
Yeah, and we were there for Billy Cundiff's epic wide left. This was wide right in New England, and he was done with the Ravens after that. What do you think happens with Tyler Loop going forward? I expect the Ravens to obviously bring him back, but is there a kicking competition?
There should be. There always should be a kicking competition. You just go out and get a veteran, bring them in, and say, okay, you're going to compete. And they respond. The good kickers always respond. Remember Matt Stover, the one year they brought in and he was struggling early, and then they brought in a kicker, and Stover just like, nah, it's not going to work. I'm just going to handle this. And he did. He took care of his business. That's what's going to happen now. They'll bring in another kicker, and he will win it. And he will become the guy down the stretch again.
So at the top of the podcast, I mentioned some of the epic losses in Ravens history, the Billy Cundiff miss, Elvis Gerback crying after a loss to Pittsburgh. This was kind of a combination. We had the crying kicker. I mean, right away, put his hands over his face and had to be consoled by the coach walking into the locker room. It was tough to watch.
Well, I tell you what, if I was a rookie, I mean, and just looking back over the brief time I played football, but if I was a rookie, I probably would have cried too. I mean, your season is on the line. We're not talking about early in the year when you get a chance to right some wrongs. You're talking about the last game of the season. You're attempting the field goal with 2 seconds left. You snap the ball and you miss. Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. For anyone. And I've seen veteran kickers have a similar response. They didn't cry, but it happens. And, as Shannon Sharp once told me after a game, quarterbacks should never cry after a game. Kickers shouldn't cry either. But I understand. I get it.
Yeah, and the difference, Gerback was a veteran at that point in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Loop was a rookie. So listen, we'll move on. There were other culprits in that loss, like the defense, namely the secondary giving up big pass play after big pass play. They gave up a 20-yard run to Aaron Rodgers. Lamar Jackson went the whole season without a 20-yard rush, but a 42-year-old quarterback rushes by the Ravens defense not once but twice. He did it in the game in Baltimore, but they crumbled after losing Kyle Hamilton, who was their best tackler, their best cover guy, the best leader on the field. You could see the change.
Well, and that shouldn't happen because they have that next up mantra. That's what they live by. Well, who's the next guy? Who gets it done? Did Gilman get it done? He played reasonably well. Trenton Simpson played reasonably well. But again, Jerry, I go back to what I said at the opening of the show. Both of these defenses were ranked 29th in pass defense. And you saw that on the field, like blown coverages, the Ravens. And what gets me about Baltimore is you saw that last week against Green Bay. When Willis threw for nearly 300 yards against this team and guys were wide open, and you said, can't they correct this? This is like, there's only one more game left in the regular season. Fix your defense. Fix your secondary. And they didn't do it. And we can trace that back to the pass rush. They didn't have much of that either, but they got some problems. They got some issues to fix. We'll see what happens now that the season is over. What does John Harbaugh do with his defensive coordinator? What does he do with his offensive coordinator? I mean, can those situations be fixed?
I'm going to be asking you about that, but I did want to address Roquan Smith. This guy gives the fiery speeches before the game, and then at points during the game, he disappears. He can't cover in pass coverage. Sometimes I think he's just a liability on the field, and this guy's earning $15 to $20 million a year.
Well, I think he finished with 3 tackles. That's not a good day, especially for an offense that just rushed for 100 yards. What they need to do is possibly get him off the field on passing situations because he's become a liability. And you saw that a little bit at the end of Ray Lewis's career, where they said, okay, maybe we need to get him off the field. And Ray fought that. And I assume Roquan will too, but he's definitely a liability. Teddy Buchanan was a liability in pass coverage. Again, is it the coaching or is it the IQ of the players? That has to be established, and we should find out soon because if they're going to make coaching changes, they better get some feelers out already to find out who their coordinators are going to be.
Indeed. And we look forward to having GM Eric DeCosta on the podcast very soon. We know that's right around the corner, and he'll address all our questions. I still have questions about Marlon Humphrey, though. He has also become a liability. The guy can't tackle. I don't think he can cover. He's never lived up to his contract. He's not a shutdown corner. And you're talking about maybe moving him to safety. But for a first-round pick, he has been underwhelming.
Well, I think you kind of know what's going on there with this contract and what will happen to him in the offseason. Should he come back? I don't think so, but that's their decision to make. Can he play safety? Possibly, but he's not a corner on the outside. Can't do that anymore. The speed is clearly, the lack of speed is clearly evident, and they have to make a move with that. Somehow, some shape. If you're going to put him inside, you put him at safety, but you do not put him on the outside. I don't understand that. But they're again, we go back to the secondary, and I did give him a D, and I kind of know what's going on there. But we'll have to see. I want to see how this plays out. I mean, and the owner, Steve Bisciotti, you have to step up and be accountable in this situation and say, okay, this is my team. These are my decisions. This is what I'm going to make. And people were okay with that. They might not agree with it, but you still need to step up to the plate and say, I chose this, and this is the path we're going forward, but you have to make a statement, and it has to be soon. Because I think the last time he spoke, Jerry, was 2022.
That was just to the local media. Hasn't held a press conference in 8 years. I'm now referring to him as Silence Steve because it's been so long since I've heard his voice.
So he has to address the issues.
No doubt about it. All right, back to the defense. And you mentioned defensive coordinator Zach Orr. Is he going to be the sacrificial lamb? I mean, let's face it, the defense didn't get any better under his guidance. And then you let a guy like Odafe Oweh go out to the Chargers, and he turns into a sack machine, which I think is an indictment on the defensive staff.
Right, and I get that, because he didn't do very much here in Baltimore. And then all of a sudden he goes out there, and all of a sudden he turns it loose, and he picks up sacks. Well, maybe because they put him in position to go and get things done, as opposed to in Baltimore. They want you to cover. They want you to do this. You want to do that. No, some people just go fetch guys. That's what you have, and that's what they need. They don't have any of those guys on this team, and you saw that in the pass rush. You saw that with Watt when he came back. All of a sudden, we got him back. Okay, they're a better football team. You look at schemes and adjustments, and what I saw was Pittsburgh in the first half couldn't stop Derrick Henry, but in the second half they come out and they're running these run blitzes, and I'm like, they've picked up on this. They've figured out how to stop this. The Ravens, I don't see those adjustments being made. And again, and I'm not just saying defensively, I'm saying offensively as well. What's going to happen with this team? I don't know.
Well, we have addressed the defensive failures and the special teams miscues. Now on to the offense, and let's start with Lamar Jackson. I thought he had a spectacular fourth quarter, as you mentioned, the two 50-yard TD passes, an incredible throw on fourth down to Isaiah Likely. That was historic. But the first three quarters were mad. I mean, this guy threw for 67 yards with a TD and an interception during the first three quarters. People tend to forget that because they saw what he did in the fourth quarter. But where was he for the first three quarters of the game? And where was the offense? After that opening drive, Derrick Henry marched right down the field. But in the second half, I think he had 5 carries.
Yeah, they kind of went to sleep. I thought he played a good first quarter, but in the second and third quarters kind of disappeared from the game. Got a lot of passes knocked down. I caught a lot of heat from what I wrote about him 2 weeks ago.
You did?
And yeah. And you know something? What I did was I held him accountable. And I made sure I talked to him as a person, as a human being, say, okay, you're accountable to the city, you're accountable to the fans. It's time for you to step up to the plate, and you're at the crossroads. That's exactly what I wrote. And I believe that. And all you got to do is look at that, the poll we ran, and I'm not responsible for polls, but the turnout from the fans was pretty unbelievable in saying, hey, we would redo that contract or trade him. And that's exactly what my point was you're at the crossroads. And guess what, Jerry? He practiced for the first time in 4 weeks, all week. And then he went out and he played reasonably well and made some plays in the fourth quarter. It's all about addressing the situation instead of coddling and babying him. No, this is what you need to do. These are the rules. You have to follow them. And this is what's going to happen. And he did reasonably well. I gave him an A in the report card grade, but I probably should have given him a B. But the fourth quarter, fascinating. I saw him run through some tackles and possible sacks and make plays. Pretty remarkable. It looked like the old Lamar.
He certainly did. Unfortunately, not able to extend the season. And the bottom line is still yet to deliver in the big games and win the big games. I understand that Tyler Loop missed that kick and the narrative would have been different, but he had the incredible throws, as I mentioned, to Flowers and to Likely. Also, though, I thought he held on to the football at times for too long, didn't take off at all, threw that interception there in the first half it was a tip pass, albeit. Also missed DeAndre Hopkins there at the end on an easy throw. So there were some mistakes made by number 8, but he played well enough for the team to win.
Well, you kind of figured that was going to happen. When you're not practicing on a regular basis, you're going to have some ups and downs. And usually it shows up early in the game, and then you get a little warm, a little acclimated with the game. And that's kind of what I saw. I don't know what was going on with those tip passes. And I don't know what was going on with the reach, but he did get sacked 3 times. He got hit 5 times in that game. And again, that was from holding on to the ball too long. But we'll see what happens. You know, you keep reading the various reports about there are negotiations going on underway with him and Eric, and we'll see what happens. But I don't know, and no one knows for sure. I guess in a couple of weeks we'll find out. But you can't pay him $75 million over the next 2 years, each of the next 2 years, and that's 24% of your salary cap, and you're going to go out and go find decent offensive and defensive linemen.
Yeah, if he does decide to go that route, I'd like to see the next Baltimore Sun reader poll on how they feel about Lamar Jackson earning $75 million. I did want to get to Zay Flowers. He certainly has had some clutch catches. One, he was wide open by at least 20 yards. I don't know where the Steelers, they weren't even in the TV picture. But he also held on to the pigskin, no fumbles. But in my opinion, he's got some growing up to do. I mean, he got very frustrated at the end of the game. You saw him walk out of the into the locker room, throw his helmet, then left the locker room early, wasn't accountable, left his other teammates to speak for him afterwards. He's done this before. I understand the frustration, but you have to be a professional. And I'm tired of people out there saying, oh, it's so emotional. How can you ask him that question so soon, or these tough questions after the game? Just like with Lamar Jackson. Folks, we aren't going to have access to these players until at least June. So if you don't ask the question after a loss, you don't get the chance. And you don't hold back as a journalist. That's not what you're taught, to bite your tongue so you can accommodate and pacify these athletes.
Well, I think part of it is how you ask the question, because after a game and you have a tough loss, how do you feel about this loss? Well, how do you think they feel about this loss? You don't ask that question. You may want to go to a specific play and ask them what happened and so forth to get them talking a little bit, but be careful what you ask right after a tough loss. And that's the way just the reporter needs to handle himself, needs to think about the situation, and especially if you've ever played this game before, to know what it feels like to have a game where it kind of slipped through your hands. And reporters just need to be a little bit smarter for the most part.
Well, I will say, I'm not going to name any names, but if you say to the player, hey, we're not going to be able to speak to you probably until June, so I have to ask this question at this point in time, I think that's a fair way to open up the question.
I agree. I agree.
What about the sloppiness? I mean, they committed a season-high 9 penalties, 78 yards, and what was their fourth quarter meltdown of the season? It was kind of emblematic of the year.
Well, yeah, it was all fitting, but the illegal formation penalties. Ronnie Stanley, how many times, and this goes back to last year in the Kansas City game. Remember, he kept lining up offsides, and they told him, now you got to get up on the line of scrimmage. You can't keep doing those things over and over again. That is insanity. All right. I think the offensive line did okay. I think they played reasonably well, but you can't jump off sides. You can't line up and have false starts. Those things hurt, especially in this situation. If the Ravens start at 1st and 15, they're in trouble. They need to get positive yards on first down, which most teams do. You got to go out and offense got to get positive yards on first down, but they struggle. And you can't struggle against Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh. You got to come out and hit them right away. And they did that in some ways, in some shape. They didn't maintain it and sustain it. And that's what football is about. And, I think you got to go back and look and say, what's going on with these penalties? Why do we have so many, especially in big games? Penalties, to me, you look at the head coach. That's the head coach's responsibility.
All right, let's address the head coach. The team goes 8-9, I believe just his 3rd losing season in 18 years. Coach Harbaugh doesn't miss field goals. He doesn't fumble the ball, doesn't miss field goals, like I said, in key moments. But Tyler Loop or Mark Andrews or Zay Flowers have. So how much is it the coach's responsibility? There's a large portion of the fan base that feels like John has to go. I feel like he's not going anywhere. That's just my personal opinion. But how much blame and responsibility does he have to accept for this 8-9 year?
He has to accept 110% responsibility because he's the head coach. That's the head coach's job. It all starts and ends with him. They are the alpha and they are the omega. That's just the way it is. And he has to look at himself and say, what can I do? What did I need to do to get better? And from that point on, then you start looking at the assistants, you start looking at the coordinators, and then you start looking at the other guys on the roster. But I would find it very hard for Steve Bisciotti to fire John Harbaugh. They get along extremely well. And again, as you pointed out, John Harbaugh didn't miss that field goal. John Harbaugh doesn't fumble. That's on the players. And there's so much you can point at players. But then again, from what I heard in the locker room after the game, there were a lot of players who supported John, but they weren't coming out and saying, we think he should be back as the head coach. That's an interesting parallel. I don't know what's going to happen. But again, Jerry, that's why the owner has to step up to the plate. He has to speak and come out and say, okay, I've had about a week to decide what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to make my decisions. And, hey, if fans aren't happy with it, so be it. But make a decision and go forward. That's where this team is right now.
100% agree. And especially if you're making changes, we got to hear from ownership. We hear from the owner of the Orioles now on a semi-regular basis. It's been a long time since we've heard from Mr. Bisciotti. So we look forward to that. All right, before we move on, Mike, a quick shout out to Femi Ian-Badagio. We know you're watching. We know you're listening because, well, word got back to me that he went on, and I think 3 seldom listened to shows, whether it be podcast or radio shows, taking shots at Mike and the column that you wrote and your sources. And I'll just say this to Femi, who I know, you acted like a fanboy with what you were saying, okay? To me, you're a Jag, just another guy. We've covered hundreds of ex-Ravens over the years, have terrific relationships with them. Don't hear them come out and be so vocal and try and bash this podcast or Mike personally as much as you have. So, Mike, the floor is yours.
Well, let's talk about Femi. Some of the accusations, you know, I don't have many sources. I don't stay in contact with the guys. Let me tell you something. From that 2000 team, and I put a list together. These are the guys I have contacted with in the last year. Chris McAllister, Dwayne Starks, Rob Burnett, Jamie Sharper, Edwin Mulatalo. All right. I am very good friends with Mike McCrary and Peter Bowyer. When I took this job, all right, on this podcast, one of the things that I thought I could do was bring in guests. So guess what? Peter Bowyer has been on this podcast. You don't talk to Peter Bowyer. Jonathan Ogden has been on. He's a Hall of Fame guy. Wally Williams has been on. And we did have Jamal Lewis possibly lined up, maybe Eric DeCosta lined up. And the worst part is, you know, I have very good relationships with Ozzie Newsome, Eric DeCosta, John Harbaugh, Chad Steele. And I think maybe you should just go and ask them. But here's the bottom line to all of this. You know, Femi, you probably owe me an apology, and I won't get one because I don't know if that's part of your makeup. But to come up with accusations that I talked about Lamar's hairstyle, that never happened. That I don't like Lamar. Nobody respects me. And I know where that came from. That came from Brian Billick, because I know it was in 2000 when he started that. No one should talk to Mike Preston because he starts trouble and so forth. And you know what was ironic was that the guys like Tony Saragusa and Rob Burnett came out and they started laughing and saying, we're not talking to you because we're not supposed to talk to you. And we just laughed about it. But Brian and I have squared it away. And guess what, Jerry? Who was on the podcast about 3 or 4 weeks ago?
I was going to mention that. Wasn't it Femi's coach here, the guy that coveted him so much, Brian Billick?
Yes, it was Brian Billick.
Strange how that worked out.
Yeah, so those things are out. But Femi, here's the bottom line for me. All right. I will forgive you because that's who I am. That's what I'm about. And that's what I stand for as a Christian person. All right. But you were way off base. And that's the way it goes. You can differ with my opinion, but to go into those extremes, that's a little far-fetched. And as for the other guy who hosted the show with him, Bruce Cunningham, hey, Bruce, you should know better. You really should know better, but I still like you. Anyway, Jerry, that's it.
Well said. And Femi, one of your sources told me that you would like to come on the podcast and respond. We're going to give a hard pass to that. We're good. We're okay. Go on to the ones that, you know, feature people who don't go to the building at least 3 times a week. And that's right, Chad Steele. I got a text from you. We go to the building at least 3 times a week. Check the security cameras. Talk to people inside the building. Have plenty of sources. 30 years covering the team. I'll say this. I was here before you got here, and I'll be here after you leave. Also, I do want to mention real quickly, since we're going out, Jeremy Kahn, who's on the radio. If you're going to criticize, and this goes for anyone on the radio right now, okay, because I did the job for 30 years as well. If you're going to criticize people and call for their jobs and call them out on the radio, at least have the guts to show your face at the facility. I learned that from Ken Rosenthal years ago, who would write scathing columns about the Orioles and Ravens and make sure to be in the locker room the very next day. That's always the way I've operated. I think it's gutless when you go on air and criticize and rip someone and never show your face. You don't even know how to get to the facility, some of these guys on the radio, without a GPS. So please tone it down if you're not going to show your face. Be a man about it. All right. That was my say.
More of the Bmore Football Podcast right after this.
At Rice Law, we've won millions for our injury clients, taken on the biggest insurance companies, and fought in the toughest courtrooms, and made it clear, strong lawyers win strong cases. But none of that matters today. The only case that matters is yours, your fight, your future. And we're ready to go to battle for you. We don't rest on past victories. We fight every case like it's our only one. Because at Rice Law, the most important victory is the one we win for you.
Rice Law. Best advice, call Rice.
Shake Shack is an amazingly fun urban dining experience, so treat yourself this holiday season with some all-time Shake Shack favorites. From the Shack Burger and crinkle-cut fries to those unbelievably delicious hand-spun shakes, or try some of the limited-time menu items throughout the year. Stop by Shake Shack's newest location at the Festival at Wood Home Shops in Pikesville. See you there. Shop Maryland's largest adult-use and medical cannabis menu, located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop.
For the last 25 years, Wood Home Insurance has been Baltimore's premier independent home, auto, and business insurance broker, representing over 30 carriers. For example, need an auto quote? Wood Home shops them all. Geico, Progressive, Travelers, AAA, Safeco, and Selective, and sends you back the best rates possible. I have personally been a client for over 2 decades, and they are world-class in service. Wood Home's owner, Rich Gottlieb, is happy to schedule a Zoom appointment with you at your convenience. Oh, and Rich is a longtime Ravens season ticket holder, so when at the game, let him know where you're tailgating. He'll drop by and say hello. So for all your needs, it's Wood Home Insurance, 410-580-2800 or woodhomeinsurance.com.
Meet the newest member of the Jack Daniels family, Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry. Jack Daniels takes pride in Old Number 7 being the backbone of all our flavors, and Jack Daniels Blackberry is no exception. A combination of our proprietary black liqueur and Jack Daniels' unique and unmistakable character, Jack Blackberry is a highly versatile juxtaposition of flavor. Delightfully sweet, bold, vibrant, and refreshing, Jack Blackberry is easily enjoyed with your favorite mixer, in a cocktail, or while enjoying your next football game. Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry is here, and as always, Jack Daniels reminds you to drink responsibly. For years, we were told to say no, but Verano is rewriting that story with award-winning flower, vapes, edibles, concentrates, and topicals for every kind of vibe. Shop smart with Savvy. Treat yourself with Encore chocolates. Relax with an Avexia bath soak, or keep it light with Bits gummies. Want something premium? Grab Essence pre-rolls or a Reserve 8th. Verano makes premium cannabis for all. Find out for yourself. Head to one of our original sponsors, Relief Shop in Baltimore on Cathedral Avenue, and mention Bmore Verano for an exclusive deal. That's Bmore Verano. This ad and products are intended for legal consumers 21 and over. Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time.
On to Baltimore and beyond, which is always sponsored by our friends over at Relief Shop. Relief Shop, Baltimore's best adult use and medical cannabis dispensary with 700 plus unique menu items and home delivery available always for medical patients. Compliments of Relief Shop. They're right there in the heart of Baltimore on Cathedral Street. All right, let's get some thoughts on Wild Card Weekend minus the Ravens. It all begins, all the fun on Saturday, Mike. You got the Rams at the Panthers. I like the Rams in this game. The Rams decided to play their starters last week. The Panthers got into the playoffs thanks to some help from some other teams. A lot of people didn't think this team was going to go far at all, and here they are. Who do you like in this opening game?
It's the Rams. The Panthers remind me of the Ravens and the Steelers. They would have been the fourth seed, and neither one of them deserved to be there. It's just that they're representative from the AFC North. Well, that's the same with the Panthers, but no, it's the Rams. They got it going on to a degree. We'll see how far it takes them, but no, they win that one.
Yeah, and I think Matthew Stafford may have locked up the MVP with that performance there in Week 17.
Oh, I don't know about that one. That kid May, for New England, he's the real deal, man. He's going to be pretty.
He is, but I just think they're going to lean towards the veteran because, I don't know, he's a second-year quarterback, and they'll say he's got a lot of opportunities to win the award.
And you might be right there, Jerry. You might be right.
All right, the evening game on Saturday, Green Bay at Chicago, that old-time divisional matchup. Green Bay limped into the postseason, though. All sorts of quarterback issues. And I know the Bears just stumbled against the Lions at home, but I'm starting to like the Bears in this one.
Man, that's going to be interesting. You know, with Green Bay, it starts and ends with their quarterback and the play there. But and the way the Ravens took them apart, and I'm like, Chicago's gotten better. You know, every course as you watch them play, they've gotten better throughout the year. So keep an eye on that one. But I like the Bears in that one too.
All right, we move to Sunday in the AFC. It's the Bills at the Jaguars. You know me, let's go Jacksonville. Buffalo, your season is coming to an end rather soon. They couldn't wait to get on social media and troll me after the Ravens lost. And I'm thinking, when was the parade in Buffalo outside of St. Patrick's Day they have every year? They don't hold any parades for championships there. So watch what you say there in Buffalo. Of course, I'm going with the Jaguars in this one, Mike.
Boy, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
See, because when Josh Allen is on, man, he can turn a game around. And the Ravens started out the first game, and when he's playing extremely well, they're tough to beat. Jacksonville, though, Trevor Lawrence is playing out of his mind.
Yes,
I've seen a lot of things there, and their defense is respectable. That's a tough one, Jerry. I'm going to flip a coin on that one. I don't know which one to take, which team to take in that one. I'd like to study both of them a little bit more, but at least that's going to be fun to watch. Break out the popcorn and the Kool-Aid on that one. Good game. Good.
Yeah, that's like the best game to me of the weekend, to be honest.
Yes.
You have the Niners at the Eagles coming up after that one. Eagles are everyone's darlings once again, Mike. San Francisco had a chance to host the Super Bowl, but they will start on the road, and I don't like the Niners defense at all.
No, and the Eagles, they can still get it done up front. And again, that's where the game's won or lost. Big fellas. What do you got on your interior lines? They can still get it done, and they can still get pressure sometimes with the four-man rush. I'll take the Eagles.
And Sunday is a triple header. The nightcap features the Chargers at the Patriots. I think the Pats take this, in my opinion. It looks like the Chargers have been a little beat up. Justin Herbert dealing with an injury, doesn't have much of an offensive line to protect him, although the Patriots were a better road team, as we saw at least here in Baltimore and during the regular season, than at home. Who do you got?
Yeah, I'll take the Patriots. I think it's just kind of like their year. It's fitting the way they're going. And again, May is playing extremely well. And I'm not sure about the Chargers. I mean, and you already stated their offensive line is beat up. Herbert has been smacked around a little bit, but he's a tough guy. I mean, I really like the way he's playing because he's a hustler. He's going out there and he's giving everything he's got. But I'll take the Patriots in that one.
Yeah. And then on Monday, the game that could have been played in Baltimore, you got the Texans going to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. I see Houston going there and shutting up Pittsburgh and those stained urine towels, and they can play renegade all they want, but I think the Steelers are going down in their season ends on Monday.
Defense travels, man. They got a good group. They can play extremely well, and they can go on the road and get it done. And there's been some conversations about if this defense for Houston is as good as the one that played for the Ravens in 2000. No, it's not, but they are very good. They're pretty good, though. I like the Texans in that one.
Yeah, me too. All right, the divisional round will be announced next weekend after the wild card round is over.
More of the Bmore Football Podcast right after this.
At Rice Law, we've won millions for our injury clients, taken on the biggest insurance companies, and fought in the toughest courtrooms, and made it clear, strong lawyers win strong cases. But none of that matters today. The only case that matters is yours, your fight, your future. And we're ready to go to battle for you. We don't rest on past victories. We fight every case like it's our only one. Because at Rice Law, the most important victory is the one we win for you.
Rice Law. Best advice, call Rice.
Shake Shack is an amazingly fun urban dining experience, so treat yourself this holiday season with some all-time Shake Shack favorites. From the Shack Burger and crinkle-cut fries to those unbelievably delicious hand-spun shakes, or try some of the limited-time menu items throughout the year. Stop by Shake Shack's newest location at the Festival at Wood Home Shops in Pikesville. See you there. Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu, located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop.
For the last 25 years, Wood Home Insurance has been Baltimore's premier independent home, auto, and business insurance broker, representing over 30 carriers. For example, need an auto quote? Wood Home shops them all. Geico, Progressive, Travelers, AAA, Safeco, and Selective, and sends you back the best rates possible. I have personally been a client for over 2 decades, and they are world-class in service. Wood Home's owner, Rich Gottlieb, is happy to schedule a Zoom appointment with you at your convenience. Oh, and Rich is a longtime Ravens season ticket holder, so when at the game, let him know where you're tailgating. He'll drop by and say hello. So for all your needs, it's Wood Home Insurance, 410-580-2800 or woodhomeinsurance.com.
Meet the newest member of the Jack Daniels family, Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry. Jack Daniels takes pride in Old Number 7 being the backbone of all our flavors, and Jack Daniels Blackberry is no exception. A combination of our proprietary black liqueur and Jack Daniels' unique and unmistakable character, Jack Blackberry is a highly versatile juxtaposition of flavor. Delightfully sweet, bold, vibrant, and refreshing, Jack Blackberry is easily enjoyed with your favorite mixer, in a cocktail, or while enjoying your next football game. Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry is here, and as always, Jack Daniels reminds you to drink responsibly. For years, we were told to say no, but Verano is rewriting that story with award-winning flower, vapes, edibles, concentrates, and topicals for every kind of vibe. Shop smart with Savvy. Treat yourself with Encore chocolates. Relax with an Avexia bath soak, or keep it light with Bits gummies. Want something premium? Grab Essence pre-rolls or a Reserve 8th. Verano makes premium cannabis for all. Find out for yourself. Head to one of our original sponsors, Relief Shop in Baltimore on Cathedral Avenue, and mention Bmore Verano for an exclusive deal. That's Bmore Verano. This ad and products are intended for legal consumers 21 and over. Effective Solutions, your one-stop shop for commercial contracting. Everything from excavation and site development to emergency remediation and restoration. Effective Solutions specializes in many forms of commercial and mixed-use construction. With a dedicated staff and a commitment to quality, Effective Solutions delivers every time.
All right, next up, it is Brian Billick's favorite segment of the podcast, Mike Preston's report card. We take a glance at the final report card for the final regular season game, and let's just start with quarterback Lamar Jackson, Mike.
Lamar Jackson, I gave him an A. I should have given him a B. I mean, I got caught up and I was on deadline, the euphoria of what he did in the fourth quarter. 11 of 18 for 238 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he had that long touchdown pass of 64 yards. He had a quarterback rating of 121.5, but in the second and third quarters, he did not get it done. Got a lot of passes batted down. So I ended up giving him an A, but I should have graded him down to a B.
Yeah, and I understand why. Again, you were on deadline late at night, stuck there in Pittsburgh on a Sunday night. How about the running backs? How did they grade out?
Running backs, Derrick Henry, 20 carries for 126 yards, average 6.3 carries. You know, what surprised me was Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator. He stuck with him. I was a little like, oh, okay, you're on this. You're working this. And then
What happened to the rotation, Mike? What happened to that rotation they were talking about a few weeks ago?
It kind of disappeared. Mitchell, what did Keith Mitchell had? 2 carries for 2 yards.
Yeah.
And he looked a little worn down. He looked a little slow going around the corners. But Derrick Henry, man, you averaged 6.3 yards to carry, and you had a long of 41. That's a pretty good day. So I gave them a B.
All right, the offensive line.
Offensive line gave C+. 3 sacks. They gave up 5 hits on the quarterback. But for the most part, they ran the ball well. They did what they had to do, but they still can't pass block. And that's an area they need to improve going into the offseason. Go find some offensive and defensive linemen, but I gave them a C+. And the receivers, I give them a C. I mean, Zay Flowers. Why is Patrick Queen covering Zay Flowers 60 yards down the field. You can't explain that one. Again, Jerry, goes back to what I said at the beginning of the show. If both defenses are tied for number 29 and giving up yards, passing yards, you saw exactly why. And, likely the catch he made, though, with had 2 catches for 32 yards, but that one over the middle on 4th and 7, that's an incredible catch. To get the pass off was good, but to make the catch where he just was out-leaping everybody, that's remarkable. So I gave them a C.
All right. Defensive line, Mike?
Defensive line, a C. They only had 100 yards rushing, but Pittsburgh had 100 yards rushing, but they don't get any pressure. And that's Matabike is gone. All right. They can't get pressure up the front. And if you're playing against a 42-year-old quarterback, you got to make a move. If you make a move one step one way, one step the other way, you got to do some things with him. They did not get it done. So I ended up giving them a C.
Yeah, it was disgusting watching him run for 20 yards. Again, Lamar Jackson didn't have one single rush for 20 yards all season, but the 42-year-old quarterback accomplished that in game 17. That was absurd.
Yes,
on to the linebacker core, Mike.
Linebackers, we already talked about Roquan Smith. I gave them a C, but I was being generous to them as well. I mean, you can't have your middle linebacker only having 3 tackles. I thought Trent Simpson had a good day. He had 7, 8 tackles in that game. And they got him on the field late a couple of times, and he still came up with big plays. But the guys on the outside, Kyle Van Noy, the guy Jones they picked up late in the season, they didn't get much of a pass rush. So I ended up giving them a C. And again, if you're going to have outside linebackers who are going to be factors in games, you have to have a go-fetch guy. They don't have one.
How about the most expensive unit on the defensive side? That would be the secondary. They looked like the weakest link out there.
Yeah, again, and once Kyle Hamilton went down, they were lost.
Yeah.
I mean, and they were getting hammered a little bit before then, but the concussion he suffered, and I don't even know if he would have been ready, even if they play Monday night. Would he have been ready to play in this one? Because usually those concussion protocols take about 2 weeks.
Well, I'll point this out. When the Ravens cleaned out their lockers this past week on Monday, he did come into the locker room. Someone tried to speak to him and was chided by a member of the Ravens PR staff. But then I'm thinking he's okay to drive home, right? So he can't talk. Make that sense. Hey,
but they were lost on the back end. You give up the late touchdown pass in the 4th quarter to Austin. That shouldn't happen. And you should be. And I know he fell down, but still, where's the safety help? You watch in the last 2 weeks, even against Green Bay, they had that look on their face like we don't know what we're doing. That has to change. That has to get better. That has to improve. So I ended up giving them a D. Special teams, I gave them a B, but I probably should have graded them down lower too.
You were a generous professor.
Yeah, I did like Keith Mitchell, though. He came in and he delivered that kickoff return at the end of the game and got him in good field position. That was 41 yards.
Yep.
That's incredible for a guy. And I had written earlier, for running back, he looked a little slow, sluggish, but then he returns that kickoff and he hits that hole. And I'm like, uh-oh, they're in business. Jordan Stout he's the guy. I don't care what anybody says. He's had a great season. What do you average? Like 48 yards a punt.
Pro Bowl.
But Tyler Luke, the direction of kicking. When you give a team a short field, and why does that happen? Why does that keep happening week after week after week? Special teams coach, what's going on there? Why can't you fix that? Or why can't he just kick the ball in the damn end zone? Because your coverage teams are pretty good. They were the week before, and then all of a sudden they're not very good in that game. I gave him a B, but I should have given him a C.
That was inexcusable, but you're right. I mean,
yeah.
I think he led the league in that category in terms of kicking the ball out of bounds and giving the opposing team the ball at the 40.
Yeah, it was 8. He had 8 of them. All right. And the closest one was at 5. So you had 3 more than your nearest competition. That's not a good thing. And coaching, I gave them a C. I think, they did a nice job with their offense and what they wanted to accomplish, to stick with the running game. And then Lamar opened it up with the passing game in the fourth quarter. But, and I always say that, but their defense, what's going on there? Is it IQ of the players? Is it strategy? Is it schematics? I do not know. And I really want to know what's going on. And we have to find out answers. So I ended up giving them a C.
Yeah, you're right about that. Too much miscommunication, especially there in the secondary. All right, we still have several episodes remaining. Is there going to be a seasonal report card where you grade each positional group for the season? Is that still ahead?
What I can do is just put it together and do like a composite offense and a composite defense instead of trying to break it down, because I don't want to repeat the same stuff again, but I can paraphrase and put it into perspective that way. And maybe, Jerry, we could talk the owner to come in on the show and see what he has to say, spice it up a little bit.
Well, you got a number, reach out to him.
Yeah. I assume Eric DeCosta will be on soon, but decisions have to be made. And there's a fever out there of what's going to happen with this franchise. And they need to hear from the owner, and it needs to be soon. I mean, you've had a couple of days now to swallow this thing and digest it. And I know they usually have the meetings in Jupiter and Florida down there to talk about things, but can't wait anymore. People want to know what's happening with this football team. They need to step up and make some decisions.
You raise ticket prices, you renovate the stadium, you maybe treat some of your customers the way they didn't want to be treated. You have empty seats. You don't want apathy setting in. You got to hear from the manager.
Right.
I agree with you there. All right, the season is over. Plenty to talk about, though. We're back next Tuesday to talk not only about what Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh had to say. Maybe we'll hear from Steve Bisciotti. Coaching changes ahead. Until then, we're back on next Tuesday, as I said. Be kind, be real, and make sure to be back for next week's episode. It is the Bmore Football Podcast.
The Bmore Football Podcast is brought to you by Rice Law.